Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with the Zapier IP Business Talks. Today, we have a very special topic. It's about FTO challenges in the life science and what is changing there right now. I had yesterday a LinkedIn post about that and quite an interesting discussion on that. And I think there's a lot going on, and I'm very happy that Christian Heubeck is with me. Today we are in Munich, and Christian, first question to you before. Let me tell the guys first of all the housekeeping rule. So this is a live show. That means you can always write a comment. I can see the comments here, or a question to me, especially, but to our guest. And I will pick that up and will integrate that in our discussion. So, Christian, thank you very much for taking the time. My first question to you is, how did you came into this strange field of intellectual property?
So, yeah, thanks, Alexander, for your kind words. And well, that's a question which I actually still ask myself sometime. But yeah, to be honest, after high school, I even thought about studying law, but in the end, I decided to go for chemistry. And I had, well, it was a great time, and I really loved science. But then, after almost 20 years ago, after my PhD, I had to make the choice. Shall I go for a postdoc and go abroad? Or shall I find something here in Germany? At this time, I got married and became father of a little son. And my wife told me, well, I would prefer to stay in Germany. And at this time, well, I recollected that I have had also a kind of interest for law, and the combination of law and science seemed for me quite interesting. And in the end, I have to thank my wife. Otherwise, I would have done the postdoc. But because of her, I found this nice job. And after 20 years, I really have to say that was one of the best decisions in my life, because I'm still quite close to science. But I love patent drafting. I really love to get explanations from inventors and to find the right words to define their invention, to give them a good scope, best scope. And what I've also figured out during the years, usually it's not my personality, but I love the dispute before court. It's somehow, let's say, a strategic game. And yeah.
Got you. And I remember what Dr. Malte Kölner told me once. He said, I really love to be at court because everybody is well prepared.
And yeah, he might be right. Yeah, in most cases, yes.
So sometimes I'm working as an expert witness, and I have the same feeling. It's tough, but it's great because it's really on the point and everybody's prepared. So that makes sense.
Sorry for interrupting. And I think in patent law, it might be also a little bit different to attorneys at law. I think in patent law, in most cases, it's, let's say, a kind of sporty character. You can win, you can lose, but I know my opponents, and some of them are even friends of myself. You can have a hard fight, a hard discussion, but after that, it's no problem to go for a drink.
Yeah, got you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I heard that from Austria, that they have only a few a patent attorneys, and that is that you just choose on which side you are this time, so to speak. Okay, so for the audience, our guest today, Christian, is subject matter expert on the IPBA Connect and works for the with and for the IP Business Academy, and he has his own page here on the DeepLex, on the Digital IP Lexicon, with lots of information about IP in the life science, especially IP protection, patent protection in life science. And very special is he is offering here on that page a white paper, which you can find here with a free download. So enjoy that. We will give you the link also in the comments on the LinkedIn chat. And very new, he has also a podcast episode now, and here on the blog you get a summary of that a podcast episode, and here you get the link to episode number 60 now from the IP Management Voice podcast. Okay, so we want to talk about FTO in life science and what's going on there. So, because my first point is what I hear quite often when I'm talking with company representatives is that they tell me, Alex, when I have a patent, then I am allowed to do what I have patented. So where should be the problem? So to speak. So typically inventors, they are pretty much focused on their own patent protection for their invention. And then there is this assumption that to a certain extent, because it is patented, I can also do what I have patented. And they are quite astonished that this don't has to be true, and that a freedom to operate analysis is in most cases even more important to bring your product to the market. So what is your experience on that, and how to tackle that?
Yeah, thanks. So basically, the experience is that for research and development teams, of course, the focus is naturally on the science itself. How to bring the next generation of drugs, therapeutics, whatever, closer to the patient. And what they do not have in mind is the landscape of legal property. So they are not, basically, most of them are not aware of freedom to operate and what it really means. So they are not aware of that freedom to operate describes the ability to make, to use, to offer to sell, or to sell a product without infringing the property rights of your competitors. In simple terms, they do not answer, or they are not aware of the question, are we legally free to use technology, to use the technology we plan, to use what we have invented in the way we want to. They have really to become aware that it is not enough to have a patent on its own. You can have your own strong patents, but you cannot launch a product because your idea, your own patent, your product is covered or within the scope of third-party rights. And these FTO these FTO conditions turn out to be.
How can that be, Christian? How can that be? I mean, when I patent something, okay, whatever it is, then the patent office, and let's say it becomes granted, then the patent office says what I have patented is new and inventive, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
And new means nobody can have it. So how can it be that something which is patented, I'm not allowed to bring it to the market?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the reason is the different standard. So if you apply for your own patent application, the so-called prior art is considered. That is everything which has been published before your actual filing. And then you have to overcome, or you have to fulfill some requirements. You have to be novel and you have to be inventive. The patent office does not consider patents, the scope of patents which have been granted. They are only looking for a patent application. After a patent has been granted and is actually a patent defining a scope of protection, the patent office is not even responsible anymore. So doing FTO means you have basically to look for granted patents, and if you are within the scope, you are infringing. So, for example, you might be the first one that recognizes that a small compound A, can, beside cancer, be used for hair loss. So you define, or you file a patent application which relates to the use of this compound for treating hair loss. The patent office will not define any prior art. You get your own patent. But if there is a patent out there which protects the compound A per se, you will be within the scope of this patent. If there's only a patent out there which protects compound A for the use of cancer, you're totally free, no problem. But if there's compound A, in general, a product claim, you have some difficulties. And in the life science, this is especially somehow more complex. On the first, there are so many building blocks, so many different elements. On the one hand, or you can start, let's say, with some genetic information, DNA, RNA sequences. This can be protected. These sequences can be, in turn, part of a expression system, like a plasmid or a vector. This can be also patented. From these specific plasmids or vectors, proteins or antibodies can be expressed. Also, the proteins and antibodies can be again patented. These proteins or antibodies might be have some therapeutic value. This can be patented. They can be biomarkers. This can be patented. Production methods of the antibody can be patented. Diagnostic tools using the antibody can be patented. And imagine you're the first one who identifies an antibody for therapeutic use, whatever, you can get a patent. However, you can infringe patents which are related to the genetic information, to the vectors in the system, whatever. There are so many different elements which are all interrelated. So if you have a new product, you usually have to look for hundreds, sometimes thousands of patents.
Okay, got you. So the point is that we have a different focus on what we are really looking for, and novelty is something different from a freedom to operate in terms of production. And we have an extremely complex situation. I would call it even a patent thicket around certain technologies, around certain applications, around certain production chains. And that makes it terribly complex, and we have to separate that. We have a freedom to operate discussion, and we should separate that very carefully from an patenting, so exclusivity discussion. Yes, you have exclusivity for this specific aspect, let's say for a certain application, but that you cannot derive out of that your ability, your legal right to produce that. That seems to me clear. So another thing. So obviously this is a specific task which has to be done. Otherwise, the danger is great or big that we have a legal risk here in it. And when we assume that there are enormous investments, so then the FTO is even more important. So when we think about FTO, so that takes time, right? So it is seen from, let's say, from the R&D team. This FTO thing is seen as a kind of legal check. So it's a pure, first of all, legal discussion, because we ask the question, are we allowed to produce that when we want to produce it? And to a certain extent, and it takes time and effort. So typically it is a kind of, also this is my experience, it is a kind of annoying, because it's a kind of task of tax, of burden to the R&D, right? So they say, okay, now just somebody has to check that, but I would like to go to the market with it, and now these lawyers tell me anything, or attorneys. So what can be done when we think about these FTO considerations? In how can we do that, especially in early stage phases of the R&D, that we do not slow down these teams when they would like to proceed? So how can that be organized?
Yeah. So I assume that in successful companies, it is somehow managed that freedom to operate is not seen as a isolated legal task. It is somehow integrated in the culture of research. So the scientists and project managers and also the management should be trained somehow to recognize when an idea might intersect with existing patents, and this should be communicated to their IP experts early. If especially scientists are aware of the landscape, IP landscape of their competitors, I think it sometimes is also a challenge for them, which also can provide some, let's say, joy, really joy, to find solutions around the IP of potential competitors. So they also get ideas, but they can also find solutions to go around, to curve out competitors' IP. And to my experience, some researchers really like it. They get also input for their own work, what to do, how to avoid certain not so good working embodiments, whatever. I really think, I'm really convinced that researchers they should be made aware of the importance. And if this is done in a successful way, this is also helpful, of course, for the IP experts. But usually, if they are on board, it is really thoroughly considered, and this is very, very helpful. And I think it's also helpful for the researchers themselves. So if you have a new project or you want to file a patent application, we usually advise in the beginning for a new project, there should be an FTO. Just just to get an overview. And in my experience, there were really some cases where a client said, oh, I want to go for compound A for the treatment of this disease. Just do an overview FTO search. And it figured out that there are a few thousands of patents. So in this case, the client decided, well, no, that makes no sense. That's a minefield. No job. We are looking for another field.
So for a certain research decision, so to speak, investment decision. So what I hear is that you say understanding, really understanding the technological field, the state of the art, makes a lot of sense. And scientists are not always aware about the patent literature which is existing. So they are typically aware about the scientific literature, but most of them do not really take into account the patent literature, the state of the art, are not aware about. And with this freedom to operate discussion, let's call it in that way, with the awareness about the problem of freedom to operate, you can discuss even better the state of the art, and that can then help them making their decisions. Okay. And what I'm hearing is that your recommendation is that this is not a one-stop shot, not a single shot analysis in terms of now we are ready, clarify whether they can go to the market or not. So you suggest having a process which is aligned with the progress of the R&D project, and from the starting point over this project, there should be an alignment between the analysis of the state of the art and with the results of the research. Okay. Yeah, I have at least two master theses about that. One from Russell Tom from Murgatroyd, who tried to develop, but this is for software developments. But there's the same recommendation. It should not be a single shot. It should be a continuous a process which is aligned with the R&D process. So Maria, hi Maria, good to see that you are here. Maria has, of course, one of her tricky questions for us, mainly for you and not for me. She addresses the following. So when we call an FTO central, so then there is a very good question, because this is a very practical question, because it's easy to preach from the textbook to say you need FTO. At the end, it is a financial decision because that costs money and it has to be invested anyhow. And then the question is, what is a kind of minimum? What has to be done in any case, and how can that? Which kind of signal or trigger is there to think about that kind of patent information work? And then could there be also a trigger anyhow to do something different? So what is your position on that?
So that's a good question. Really, I like it. So the actual minimum is, of course, you should have FTO for your product. If you enter the market at this stage, you should have checked the FTO situation. I really think that's minimum. I also already mentioned that there should be FTO at the beginning of your project, because this reduces the risk of spending money and running into a situation where you are blocked. What we also advise our clients is that in an ideal world, you define IP clearance points during the development. So after a certain time, are we free? Are we free? This can be checked after certain times. What turns also out to to be important is we have to make a differentiation for which firm we are analyzing the FTO situation. If you are talking for a startup or a university and you have a nice drug or antibody somehow, this is different, a different situation as if we are talking for a large firm, multinational firm, because also you need FTO also to get your product scalable. This is usually not checked by smaller firms. That is checked by larger firms if they are going to acquire a small firm. If it turns out that there's no FTO for scalable production, they usually stay away. But let's come back to the question. What I like about the question is that it shows how important it is that the researchers are aware of FTO and speak with their legal experts. As we all know, a patent application is published 18 months after it has been filed. So there's always this 1.5 year gap of uncertainty. What is out there? This means, and researchers are usually totally aware of the research of other companies. They visit trade fairs, come back, say, oh, they have presented this. There's a paper out there. We have a press release. And then they should go to the legal expert and tell him, we have found something. Is there a patent application? Is it already out there? In many cases, it is not. But then you have to monitor this competitor. But I think, yeah, that is a really good example which shows how it is important that the researchers are in permanent contact with their legal department or with their IP attorneys.
Yeah, I got you. So that should be a continuous interaction, so to speak, and not be seen as a legal burden. And I'm happy when I don't see any attorneys around me. So research is research and law is law. And yeah, that is obviously not helpful and absolutely clear from what you're saying. Maria has another question, which is also quite tricky and interesting. She says when there have to be made triage decisions, so should we follow that, should we proceed, and so on. So what is your experience on the one side, and what is your recommendation on the other side? Who should make such decisions? So is that IP legal, an FTO working group with R&D, a cross-functional committee? So what is the resonance group in the company which can really interact with you, which has enough also decision power, but also understanding of the complexity of these questions?
I assume it should be a team in the end, because there are so many aspects. Being a patent lawyer, well, I'm sometimes really asked, should we go ahead with it? It's hard to say. As a lawyer, you're usually not in the position to say something. If you say, well, the chance is over 50%, usually that's already quite much for a lawyer. I think it should be a group, because you need, there are so many aspects which are important. If you are developing something, you have also your own patent application. Perhaps it comes out that your product, which is covered by this patent application, will not have freedom to operate. So perhaps this is the stage where the project, this one, could be finished. On the other hand, you have a patent application pending, and perhaps even more. And also such pending applications can be an asset. That can be a starting point to start negotiations with the company which is holding the property rights which are blocking you. Perhaps they are interested. On the other hand, perhaps they are also ready to give you a license, or you do some cross licensing. So even if you are blocked, you have no freedom to operate, this can be a starting point for negotiations with their competitors. Or if in many cases the firm or the IP which is blocking you is held by universities. A lot of basic research, broad basic applications and patents is held by research institutes, and especially universities, or Max Planck or Fraunhofer, something like this. And many of these organizations are really interested in giving licenses.
Mm-hmm.
So okay. If you're blocked, it's also important who is holding the blocking right, and it can be also the starting point for negotiation.
So what I understand is that your FTO is obviously not a yes and no thing. It is not black and white. It is you understand better and better the patent landscape around your scientific topic, and the players who are in that game, and then you have to decide how to play the game with them and how to make the best out of your research investments already, and how to proceed. So, but you said it should be, but I asked you a very tricky two-folded question. I said, who should be, and what is your experience? Who is it typically? So what is your experience?
In the end, it's a business decision.
So, which means there is anyhow a decision maker in the background who has to be convinced and explained what is the situation, and then there comes the decision, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the situation in most cases I'm aware of. Yeah.
Okay. So Zayed has also a nice question for us. Which is also a bit tricky. So for the continuous FTO update, in some cases, the proposed product infringe pendant applications or rejected patent applications who can be granted after appeal. So in such a case, what is the best strategy to deal with such patents, or let's say with such uncertainty, to avoid losses of investment? So is that, by the way, a legal question, or is it a business question? And if so, what is your recommendation in such a situation?
Okay, so if we are looking for FTO, we are usually looking back the last 20 years, because a patent is pending at max for 20 years. In the life sciences, usually we go back up to 25 years, because you can also have this SPCs, supplementary protection certificates. So this is the range where we have to look at it. And in this range, of course, there might be also pending patent applications. Pending patent applications, which are a risk for you, should of course be monitored. But I agree, the situation might be somehow not nice or inconvenient if such a patent is rejected or is opposed and is under appeal, because this appeal procedure at the European Patent Office, including the first instance, can be still up to 5 years. And you do not know what will happen in this time. Or if it might be back and forth after 5 years. That's a really inconvenient situation. But basically, it cannot be avoided. If a patent is granted, which is disturbing you, of course, you can file opposition by your own. It is also possible to enter the opposition proceedings somehow by the way of a kind of third-party observation. That might work, but during opposition, during appeal, the second instance, you have no influence at all. You have just to wait. It's really not a nice situation, but there's no way out. Okay. On the other hand, coming back to negotiations, perhaps it's a good situation to start negotiations. If you tell somebody, well, you have this patent, it's under appeal, you lost the first instance, it might be upheld in the second instance, we assume it's quite weak, as shown by the European Patent Office. Nevertheless, we are somehow interested. Perhaps we are ready to, not a classical license, but we are ready to pay some money to use your weak patent right now.
Got you. So what I see is, when I understand you right, what you say is we should not come from a black and white perspective and saying, yes, it's free, or no, it's not. So there is a lot of shades of gray, and it is business, and we should come from a business perspective. So law, these legal aspects are important as, let's say, guidelines or roadblocks or whatever, but at the end, we have to deal with it. We have to work with it, and we have to find out how can we make our business anyhow. And the legal aspects are simply a certain blocks or hindrance or supportive aspects which we should take into account. So that is the perspective which you suggest here, right?
Yeah. So and to be honest, if you ask your IP attorney to do FTO search, in the huge number of search and analysis, in the huge number of analysis, he will tell you in the end, not you have freedom to operate. Usually he will tell you, well, we have identified a certain couple of patents or competitors where there is a risk of being blocked, because in many situations also the scope of protection of an identified patent might be somehow unclear.
Got you.
And then we have a further problem, especially in the life science. Almost all companies think in a multinational way, and we have a lot of different jurisdictions, especially if you think about infringement. What might be an infringement in Europe might not be an infringement in the US.
Yeah. So for me, it becomes more and more clear that it is not so helpful to talk about having an FTO in terms of this is a fact and the lawyer or the attorney is analyzing that. To me, it becomes more and more clear that it is something which you have to create. You make FTO in terms of this is a situation which you have to design, create, construct, and not something which is simply given from a data analysis.
And that's nice. I will use this phrase in the future. Create FTO. Yeah, you have to develop. it.
This is a much more active, this is an activity, and that comes to this interplay. Yeah. So only when you interact with your lawyers, attorneys who help you, who recommend, and so only then you can create, you can make your FTO. This is an active process, and this is nothing which is simply from outside given. So it's much more an asset than it is an external factor.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
So we have only 3 minutes left. So and a lot of open points also here on the chat. One thing which comes into my mind, and it is also discussed on the chat, is obviously AI-driven chemistry or AI-driven life science, whatever. So it is on different aspects. We have AI in diagnostics. We have AI in the design of molecules, and basically, what we see is that chemistry, life science, biotechnology is completely hidden from AI. So that's for sure, and it makes the things terrible complex even more. So one of our listeners said it's Chen. It's a master from my program and an alumni. And he said, yeah, we have even the situation that companies file patents which comes out from AlphaFold. So just artificial, what means artificial? I mean, just the thought of a molecule, but you can describe it, and nobody's in doubt that you could realize it, and so you can patent it. So the patent landscape becomes complex. It is more data-driven. That was also a point. So what to do in the discussion, what to do with trade secrets, with data. So things become terribly complex. And what is your expectation? What is your thought about the next 5 years in that field? So first of all, attorneys become more important. That's clear. But in addition, what are your thoughts about that?
It's a nightmare. Yeah. So I totally agree. What will be needed, or what should be done? We should think of using not only one IP lawyer which is specialized in life sciences. We should probably think of multidisciplinary FTO teams. As the number of biomarkers and sequences and corresponding patent applications is exploding, one should also, of course, think using AI for FTO. Otherwise, I assume it will not be handleable, at least in some parts of life sciences. What will become very important is data ownership, especially in the diagnostics. At the moment, diagnostics are hard to patent in the US. They cannot be patented right now, to be honest. But I've heard of some tendencies that this shall be changed in the near future again. And then, well, we really have to think about huge databases, database ownership of biomarkers, biosimilars, whatever. And yeah, and as I said in the beginning, we really have to think of multidisciplinary FTO teams, because for a life science attorney, it is hard to check if the use of a biosimilar or biomarker is comprised by some algorithm or not. So
yeah, good. Yeah. So your recommendation?
There's so much development, so much movement. I think more know-how is needed, and this can be only done if more people bring in their knowledge.
Yeah, I got you. So what you say in what I hear is that there should be more competency, definitely more budget, and of course it becomes more serious, and we need more competency in this field. So it's a kind of function, yeah. So an ability and function which the players should have, and don't see it as just an additional little burden, but then everything will be free. The opposite is the case. Freedom to operate becomes the central point, and it becomes more and more complex. So, Christian, thank you very much for taking the time to discuss that with me. We have to close for today, but hopefully this is not the last time we talk about that fascinating topic. To the audience, Christian will stay in the after show party on LinkedIn, in the chat, will answer to your questions. Think about this white paper, and to all of you, if you want to become a subject matter expert to work with us like Christian, we are very happy. Still, the call is open, and we are happy to work with you on all these different topics in IP. Christian, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, and this time we were in Munich, so we have the same time zone at least. And and to the audience, wherever you are, thank you very much for joining us, and I'm happy next week to meet you again. Bye bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.